In this session, let us learn about forms. An HTML form is used to collect user input. The user input is most often sent to a server for processing. See here, code, HTML forms is the code, label for fname, first name, input type text, ID fname, name fname, value Ponnuri, label for last name, label br, input type text, ID lname and lname, value Gopie Krishna, br, input type, submit value, submit. If you click the submit button, the form data will be sent to a page called actionpage.html. See, by writing and executing this code, the result returns this. See, first name, last name and submit button. The form element. The HTML form element is used to create an HTML form for user input. Form elements. The form element is container for different types of input elements such as text fields, checkboxes, radio buttons, submit buttons, etc. All the different form elements are covered in this chapter. HTML form elements. The input element. The HTML input element is the most used form element. An input element can be displayed in many ways depending on the type attributes. Here are some examples. See here, input type is equal text, displays a single line text input in field. Input type is equal radio button, displays a radio button for selecting one of many choices. Input type is equal checkbox, displays a checkbox for selecting 0 or more of many choices. Input type submit, displays submit button for submitting the form. Input type button displays a clickable button. All the different input types are covered in this chapter. Text fields. The input type text defines single lines input field or text input. See the code and result. See, this is the code. A form with input fields for text input field, fname, input, label, input, value, Gopie Krishna. Note that the form itself is not visible. Also note that the default width of text input field is 20 characters. See, by writing and executing this code, the result returns this. Text input fields, first name, last name. Note the form itself is not visible. Also note that the default with the text input field is 20 characters. The label element. Notice the use of the label element in the example above. The label tag defines a label for many form elements. The label element is useful for screen reader users because the screen reader will read out loud the label when the user focuses on the input element. The label element also helps users who have difficulty clicking on very small regions such as radio buttons or checkboxes, because when the user clicks the text within the label element, it toggles the radio button or checkbox. The for attributes for the label tag should be equal to the ID attributes of the input element to bind them together. Radio buttons. The input type is equal to radio defines a radio button. Radio buttons let a user select one of a limited number of choices. See, a form with the radio buttons. See here, now we are using radio input. Form input type, radio, ID, HTML name, fav language, value, HTML. See, by writing and executing this code, this is how the HTML code above will be displayed in the browser. See the radio buttons, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Checkboxes. Choose your favorite web language. The input check type checkbox defines the checkbox. Checkbox let us use select 0 or more options of a limited number of choices. A form with checkboxes. See here, now we are in checkboxes. See here, input type checkbox. By writing and executing this code, the result returns this. Checkboxes. I have a bike, I have a car, I have a boat. The submit button. The input type submit defines a button for submitting the form data to a form handler. The form handler is typically a file on the server with a script for processing input data. The form handler is specified in a form actions attribute. See the example in code, a form with a submit button. By writing and executing this code using action input action https www.ponnurigopikrishna.in action page HTML label for fname first name input type text id fname value Ponnuri label for last name input type text id name last name Gopie Krishna. See input type is called submit button, value submit form. If you click the submit button, the form data will be sent to a page called action page HTML. See the code and result. The name attributes for input. Notice that each input field must have a name attribute to be submitted. If the name attribute is omitted, the value of the input field will not be sent at all. See the example. The example will not submit the value of the first name input field. See the code and result. See the code. By writing and executing this code, the result returns this. If you click the submit button, the format data will be sent to a page called action page HTML. Notice that the value of the first name field will not be submitted because the input element does not have a name attribute. Okay friends, this is the end of HTML part 54 forms. In next video let us learn about another topic, form attributes.
If you like our program, please like, subscribe and press bell icon for our next part video updates. Thank you friends. Meet you in next video. All the best.